The withdrawal of the Valorian fleet from human space sent shockwaves throughout the known galaxy that would reshape interstellar politics for generations. Within hours of the retreat, emergency sessions convened on Council Station Omega as alien representatives struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been effortlessly outmatched by a species they had assumed was barely capable of spaceflight. Ambassador Zethkora found herself in the extremely uncomfortable position of explaining to the Galactic Council how their greatest military alliance had been humiliated by primitives. The technical data that humanity had transmitted during the confrontation showed weapons and defensive systems that represented a quantum leap beyond anything in the combined galactic arsenal. Every species in the Council was suddenly forced to reconsider their position in the universal hierarchy. The data made it clear that human technology was not just superior, but fundamentally different from anything the galaxy had developed. Weapons that manipulated gravity and space itself, defensive systems that could absorb unlimited energy, and stealth capabilities that rendered entire fleets invisible, challenged every assumption about what was technologically possible. The humans had not just surprised the galaxy, but had rewritten the rules of warfare itself. President Mary Johnson stood before a joint session of Congress in Washington, finally able to reveal the truth that had been hidden from the American people and the world for 3 years. Project Silence had been humanity's greatest gamble, appearing weak and isolated while building the most advanced military force in known space. The revelation sent shockwaves through human society as people learned their planet had been under alien threat. The president explained how human scientists and engineers had worked in absolute secrecy to develop technologies that surpassed anything the galaxy possessed. The apparent primitive nature of human civilization had been a carefully crafted illusion designed to hide the greatest military buildup in history. While aliens debated how to divide Earth's resources, humans had been building the fleet that would protect their independence forever. General Kevin Brooks briefed Congress on the scope of human military capabilities that were now being revealed to the world. Secret bases throughout the solar system housed weapons and ships that could defend Earth against any conceivable threat. The construction projects hidden on Mars, Europa, Titan, and dozens of asteroid facilities represented an industrial capacity that rivaled entire galactic civilizations. Captain Amy Foster received new orders as her fleet maintained its protective formation around Earth. The 1,000 ships that had revealed themselves were just the beginning of human military capability. Construction facilities throughout human space were already building the next generation of vessels, incorporating technologies that made their current fleet look primitive by comparison. Humanity was not just defending itself but preparing to expand into the galaxy. The economic implications of the revelation were staggering as world markets tried to process the reality of alien civilizations and human technological superiority. Companies that had been working on secret government projects suddenly found themselves possessing technologies decades ahead of anything publicly known. The fusion of alien science with human innovation had created breakthroughs in energy, materials, medicine, and transportation that would transform human civilization. Admiral Helen Rodriguez coordinated with military commanders throughout the solar system as humanity began the transition from secrecy to open galactic presence. The hidden bases and shipyards could now operate without concealment, dramatically increasing production capacity for both military and civilian applications. Earth was no longer hiding from the galaxy, but preparing to take its place as a major power. On distant Valoria Prime, Admiral Krixtall faced a tribunal of his empire's highest officials to explain the greatest military disaster in Valorian history. His failure to conquer a supposedly primitive species had revealed fundamental flaws in galactic intelligence gathering and military doctrine. The empire that had ruled through superior firepower suddenly found itself facing enemies with weapons they could not understand or counter. The Valorian defeat had immediate consequences throughout their empire, as subject species began questioning the invincibility of their rulers. Rebellions broke out on 12 worlds as oppressed populations learned that the mighty Valorian fleet had been humiliated by a single human defensive action. The balance of power that had maintained galactic stability for centuries was crumbling as everyone scrambled to understand the new reality. Dr. Lisa Parker and her research teams were already working on the next phase of human expansion as they analyzed intelligence gathered from alien communications during the crisis. The galaxy contained thousands of species, most of them trapped under the rule of aggressive empires like the Valorians. Humanity possessed the technology to liberate these oppressed peoples, but such action would require careful planning and overwhelming force. The revelation of human capabilities had created a power vacuum that other species were rushing to fill. Some aliens proposed immediate diplomatic contact with Earth, hoping to form alliances with the new galactic superpower. Others suggested preemptive attacks before humans could expand their influence further. The galaxy was dividing into factions based on how they chose to respond to humanity's emergence. President Johnson announced that Earth would be establishing diplomatic relations with any species that approached in peace, while maintaining military readiness against potential threats. The United Nations was creating new departments to handle interstellar diplomacy, trade negotiations, and the integration of alien technologies into human society. The age of isolation was ending, but humanity would engage with the galaxy on their own terms. Captain Foster monitored reports from human observation posts throughout local space, as alien fleets repositioned themselves in response to Earth's revealed capabilities. Some species were withdrawing from human territory entirely, while others were establishing defensive perimeters around their own worlds. The galaxy had learned that humanity could defend itself, but many aliens wondered if humans would be content with mere defense. The transformation of human society accelerated as classified technologies were released to civilian industries. Transportation systems that had been limited to chemical rockets were replaced with drives that could reach other star systems in days. Energy production jumped to levels that eliminated scarcity for the first time in human history. Medical advances promised to extend human lifespan indefinitely while enhancing physical and mental capabilities. The galaxy would never again mistake human silence for weakness or isolation for inability. Earth had stayed quiet for 3 years, listening carefully to alien communications and studying their technologies, while building defenses they could never imagine. When the time came to speak, humanity had done so with a voice that could not be ignored. 1,200 warships that announced their arrival on the galactic stage not as supplicants seeking protection, but as equals who would chart their own course among the stars. The age of human silence was over, replaced by an era of expansion and exploration that would carry Earth's children to every corner of the galaxy. The aliens had awakened a sleeping giant that would reshape the universe through technology, determination, and the refusal to submit to any power that threatened human freedom. Admiral Crichton faced the hardest choice of his military career as he stared at the impossible fleet surrounding his forces. 300 Valorian ships against 1,200 human vessels of unknown capability presented odds that no rational commander would accept. However, the Valorian Empire had built its reputation on never backing down from primitive species, and retreat would destroy his career and honor. The admiral's pride warred with tactical reality as his officers waited for orders. The humans had demonstrated technological superiority that made Valorian science look primitive. But Crichton had conquered 40 worlds by refusing to show weakness. His empire expected him to fight regardless of the odds, and personal survival meant less than maintaining Valorian dominance through the galaxy. Captain Amy Foster watched the alien fleet's hesitation from her command chair aboard the Terra's Fury. The Valorians were clearly struggling with their situation, torn between pride and self-preservation. Human intelligence had predicted this reaction perfectly. The aliens were too arrogant to retreat but too smart to ignore the obvious danger they faced. Admiral Crichton made his decision with the cold calculation that had made him the Empire's most successful fleet commander. The humans might possess superior technology, but they were still an unknown quantity in actual combat. Valorian warriors had defeated enemies with better equipment before, using experience and ruthlessness to overcome technological disadvantages. Perhaps the primitives were bluffing about their true capabilities. The Valorian flagship charged its main weapons array, targeting the largest human vessel within range. The inevitable conquest had destroyed planets with those guns, and no known ship could survive a direct hit from weapons that channeled the power of a small star. If the humans wanted to fight, they would learn why the Valorian Empire ruled half the galaxy. Captain Foster saw the alien weapons charging and shook her head with genuine sadness. The Valorians were about to learn a lesson that would reshape their understanding of warfare, but the demonstration would cost lives that could have been saved through simple withdrawal. Human technology made this battle completely one-sided, but the aliens insisted on forcing the issue. The order went out to all human ships to assume defensive formation delta, a configuration designed to showcase advanced defensive capabilities while minimizing the need for offensive action. The humans preferred to end this confrontation through demonstration rather than wholesale destruction, but they were prepared for whatever the aliens chose to do. Admiral Krixtal gave the order to fire, and the Valorian flagship unleashed a plasma barrage that should have vaporized any ship in known space. The energy beam struck the Terra's Fury dead center, delivering enough power to crack a moon. Every Valorian officer watched their screens, expecting to see the human dreadnought destroyed in a brilliant explosion that would prove their technological superiority. Instead, something impossible happened that would haunt Valorian nightmares for generations. The devastating plasma beam simply vanished as it touched the Terra's Fury's hull, absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space by defensive systems that operated on principles beyond Valorian understanding. The human ship didn't even slow down or change course. Captain Foster's voice came across all communication channels with calm professionalism as she announced that the alien attack had been noted and recorded. The humans would now respond with a demonstration of their own capabilities, targeted to cause minimum loss of life while making their point absolutely clear. The galaxy was about to see what 3 years of secret development had accomplished. The UES Retribution received targeting orders from the Terra's Fury and selected a Valorian destroyer on the fleet's outer edge. The human ship fired a single shot that appeared as nothing more than a brief distortion in space. The weapon was not plasma or missiles or any form of energy that Valorian science recognized. Instead, it was a concentrated burst of gravitational force that human physicists had spent years learning to control. The targeted Valorian destroyer experienced something that no ship had ever survived. The gravity pulse struck its hull and began folding space around the vessel, compressing matter and energy into an increasingly small area. The destroyer didn't explode or burn or break apart. It simply crumpled inward like paper being crushed in an invisible hand until nothing remained but a small cloud of compressed debris. On his bridge, Admiral Krixtal watched in absolute horror as one of his most advanced warships was erased from existence by a weapon he couldn't understand or defend against. The sensor readings made no sense, showing energy discharges that violated known physics and defensive capabilities that seemed to mock conventional military doctrine. His entire understanding of warfare had just become obsolete. The human demonstration continued with methodical precision as Captain Foster transmitted detailed technical specifications to the Valorian fleet. The data package contained information about human weapon systems, ship capabilities, and fleet deployments throughout local space. The message was unmistakably clear. Humanity possessed both the technology and numbers to make any invasion attempt suicidal. Dr. Lisa Parker monitored alien communications from Earth as panic spread through the Valorian fleet. The aliens were discovering that their most powerful weapons were useless against human defenses, while human weapons could destroy their ships with casual ease. The technological gap was so vast that the battle was less of a fight than a one-sided demonstration of superior capability. Admiral Krixtal received damage reports from throughout his fleet as human ships targeted non-essential systems on Valorian vessels. The attacks were precisely controlled, disabling weapons and engines without killing crews. The humans were making it clear that they could destroy the entire Valorian fleet whenever they chose, but preferred to spare lives through a show of overwhelming force. The Valorian commander found himself facing a situation that had never occurred in his empire's history. His fleet was completely outmatched by an enemy that possessed technology, decades or centuries ahead of anything in the Galactic arsenal. Every tactical doctrine and strategic principle that had built the Valorian Empire was useless against opponents who could manipulate gravity itself. Captain Foster opened communications one final time, informing Admiral Kriegstall that the demonstration was complete. The Valorian fleet now had personal experience with human defensive and offensive capabilities. Any further aggression would result in the complete destruction of all alien ships in the solar system. The choice between withdrawal and annihilation belonged entirely to the Valorian commander. The message reached every ship in the alien fleet simultaneously, translated into perfect Valorian by communication systems that proved human technological superiority extended to every aspect of their civilization. Admiral Kriegstall stared at his tactical displays, watching his proud fleet reduced to helpless targets surrounded by enemies they could neither fight nor escape. The age of Valorian dominance was ending in the most humiliating defeat imaginable. Admiral Kriegstall was studying his invasion plans when the impossible happened. His tactical officer suddenly shouted across the bridge, his voice filled with panic and disbelief. The sensor displays were lighting up with contacts that should not exist. Energy signatures that appeared from empty space like ghosts becoming solid. The main tactical screen erupted with red warning symbols as human ships materialized throughout the solar system. From behind every moon, every asteroid, every planetary ring, sleek warships appeared where Valorian sensors had detected nothing. The humans had somehow hidden an entire fleet in plain sight, using technology that made Valorian stealth systems look like primitive toys. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Terra's Fury as her ship decloaked near Earth's moon. The massive dreadnought had been completely invisible to alien sensors, hidden inside what appeared to be a simple asteroid. Around her, dozens of other human ships revealed themselves in perfect coordination, their hulls gleaming with exotic metals and bristling with weapons the Valorians could not identify. The human fleet was enormous beyond anything the Valorians had imagined possible. Dreadnoughts the size of cities emerged from hiding places throughout the asteroid belt. Carriers appeared near Mars, launching fighters that moved with impossible speed and agility. Destroyers and cruisers materialized around every planet, creating a defensive network that surrounded the entire solar system. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Kriegstall stared at the tactical display in complete shock. The readings showed over 1,000 human ships, each one displaying energy signatures that suggested technology far beyond Valorian capabilities. The primitives he had come to conquer possessed a fleet that could challenge the combined forces of every species in the Galactic Council. The sensor officer reported more impossible readings with each passing second. Human ships were appearing throughout local space, some of them larger than the Valorian flagship. Their weapon systems operated on principles that Valorian science could not explain. Their engines produced energy outputs that should have been physically impossible. Everything about the human fleet suggested a level of technological advancement that made the Valorian Empire look like children playing with toys. Captain Foster opened communications on all frequencies, her voice calm and professional as she addressed the invading fleet. She identified herself as the commander of the Terra's Fury and informed the Valorians that they were trespassing in human space. The aliens had exactly 10 minutes to begin their withdrawal, or their presence would be considered an act of war against Earth and all human colonies. The message reached every ship in the Valorian fleet simultaneously, translated into their language by communication systems that demonstrated another example of advanced human technology. Admiral Kriegstall had expected to dictate terms to a primitive species begging for mercy. Instead, he found himself receiving ultimatums from a civilization that clearly possessed the power to enforce their demands. On Council Station Omega, Ambassador Zethkora watched the tactical displays with growing horror. The Valorian fleet was sending live data feeds back to the Galactic Council, and the readings were unlike anything in their databases. Human ships were appearing faster than sensors could track them, emerging from stealth systems that seemed to bend space itself around their hulls. The human vessels displayed weapon configurations that violated known physics and defensive systems that made no sense according to current galactic science. Some ships appeared to be generating their own gravity fields. Others showed energy, signatures that suggested they could manipulate time and space. The technological gap between humans and the rest of the galaxy was so vast it seemed impossible. Admiral Krixtal tried to understand how the humans had achieved such technological superiority in complete secrecy. Valorian intelligence had monitored Earth for decades without detecting any signs of advanced development. The humans had somehow built the most powerful fleet in galactic history, while appearing to be a pre-spaceflight civilization. The human ships continued to appear from impossible hiding places throughout the solar system. Some emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, others materialized from the rings of Saturn. A few seemed to simply fade into existence from empty space, suggesting stealth technology that could render entire fleets completely invisible to all known detection methods. Captain Foster received status reports from human commanders throughout the fleet. Every ship was in position and ready for combat. The secret construction projects had been completed just in time, delivering weapons and defenses that would give humanity an overwhelming advantage in any battle. 3 years of apparent weakness had hidden the greatest military buildup in galactic history. The Valorian fleet found itself completely surrounded by ships they could not understand or match. Admiral Krixtal's 300 vessels suddenly seemed pathetically small compared to the 1,000 human warships that had appeared around them. The invasion force that had never known defeat was now trapped in enemy territory, with no hope of fighting their way out. Dr. Lisa Parker monitored the situation from Earth, watching as alien communications filled with panic and confusion. The Valorians were trying to understand how they had walked into such a perfect trap. Their messages showed fear, anger, and complete bewilderment at the reversal of their situation. The hunters had become the hunted in a matter of minutes. The human fleet maintained perfect formation as more ships continued to decloak throughout local space. The final count showed 1,200 vessels of various sizes, all equipped with technology that represented a quantum leap beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The aliens had thought they were conquering a primitive world, but they had actually stumbled into the most advanced military force in known space. Admiral Krixtal faced the most difficult decision of his career. His empire had never retreated from a weaker enemy, but the humans had proven they were anything but weak. The tactical situation was hopeless, surrounded by superior forces with no possibility of victory. Pride demanded that he fight, but survival suggested that retreat was the only rational choice. Captain Foster's voice came over the communication channels again, politely reminding the Valorian fleet that 8 minutes remained before their ultimatum expired. The human commander spoke with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages in the coming battle. The age of human silence was over, and the galaxy was about to learn what 3 years of secret preparation had accomplished. The Valorian war fleet came out of hyperspace like a storm breaking over calm seas. 300 ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, their hulls gleaming with the dark metal that had conquered 40 worlds. Fleet Admiral Krixtal stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled at the small blue planet that had dared to ignore his empire's generous offers. The inevitable conquest was the largest ship in the Valorian fleet, a massive dreadnought that had never lost a battle. Its weapons could crack planets, and its defenses had stopped the combined fleets of 6 different species. Admiral Krixtal had commanded this ship for 20 years, winning every fight and claiming every world his emperor desired. The tactical officer worked at his station, running deep scans of the inner solar system. The readings showed exactly what Valorian intelligence had predicted. Earth possessed a collection of primitive space stations, some basic orbital platforms, and simple spacecraft that moved between planets using chemical rockets. The humans had no visible weapons, no significant fleet, and no defenses that could threaten even the smallest Valorian destroyer. Admiral Krixtal examined the scan results with satisfaction. The humans had built a few military satellites around their world, but these weapons were laughably weak compared to Valorian technology. Their largest spacecraft were cargo vessels designed for moving supplies between their colonies on Mars and the asteroid belt. Everything about human civilization suggested a species that had barely achieved spaceflight. On Earth, President Mary Johnson sat in the secure conference room beneath the White House. The walls around her were lined with screens showing the alien fleet's positions and capabilities. General Kevin Brooks stood at the tactical display, pointing out the formation that the Valorians had chosen for their approach. The aliens were confident enough to spread their ships across a wide area, making no effort to defend against counterattack. Admiral Helen Rodriguez confirmed that all human forces were in position throughout the solar system. The secret fleet had been waiting for this moment for months, hidden behind advanced stealth technology that made their ships invisible to alien sensors. Every human commander knew their role in the operation that would begin tomorrow morning. 3 years of preparation were about to be tested in the most important battle in human history. Secretary of Defense Amanda Lewis read the latest alien transmission aloud to the assembled military leadership. The Valorian Empire was demanding complete surrender within 24 hours. All human military forces would be disbanded, all weapons destroyed, and all spacecraft turned over to Valorian control. The human population would be relocated to designated worlds where they could serve the Empire as workers and soldiers. The demands were exactly what human intelligence had predicted. The Valorians saw Earth as another primitive world to be absorbed into their growing empire. They had no concept that they might face serious resistance from a species they considered barely civilized. Their arrogance would be their downfall when they discovered what humanity had built during 3 years of apparent weakness. President Johnson looked around the room at the faces of America's top military commanders. These people had spent years preparing for this confrontation, building weapons and ships in absolute secrecy, while the world above continued its normal life. Most citizens had no idea that alien civilizations even existed, let alone that Earth was about to become a battleground for galactic dominance. General Kevin Brooks updated the president on the final preparations for Operation Revelation. Human forces were positioned throughout the solar system, ready to reveal themselves when the signal came. The secret shipyards had completed their work just in time. Humanity now possessed the most advanced fleet in known space, built using technology that combined alien science with human innovation. Captain Amy Foster received her orders aboard the hidden dreadnought UES Terra's Fury. The massive ship sat motionless inside a hollowed-out asteroid, completely invisible to Valorian sensors. Around her, the crew made final preparations for the battle that would determine humanity's future. Every person on the ship understood that they were about to make history. The Terra's Fury was humanity's most advanced warship, equipped with weapons that existed only in alien nightmares. The ship's main gun could punch through the armor of any known vessel. Its defenses could absorb the combined firepower of an entire enemy fleet. Most importantly, its stealth systems allowed it to appear and disappear at will, striking without warning and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Throughout the solar system, similar ships waited in hidden positions. The asteroid belt concealed a dozen dreadnoughts and 50 smaller warships. Mars orbital space held another fleet disguised as mining equipment. Even Earth's moon hid weapons platforms that could destroy entire invasion forces. The Valorians thought they were attacking a defenseless world, but they were actually flying into the most sophisticated trap ever constructed. Admiral Kriegstall broadcast his final ultimatum to Earth, demanding immediate surrender or face the consequences of defying the Valorian Empire. His message was confident and threatening, the same words he had used to break the resistance of dozens of other worlds. He expected the humans to panic and beg for mercy, just as every other primitive species had done when faced with Valorian power. The human response came exactly 24 hours later, transmitted on all frequencies so that every alien ship would receive it clearly. President Johnson's voice was calm and steady as she delivered humanity's answer to the Valorian demands. Earth would not surrender, would not submit to alien rule, and would defend itself against any aggression. The age of human silence was officially over. Admiral Kriegstall laughed when he heard the human response. The primitives actually thought they could resist the might of the Valorian Empire. Their defiance would make their eventual defeat even more satisfying. He gave the order for all ships to advance toward Earth, planning to demonstrate Valorian superiority by destroying every human military installation in a single devastating attack. The Valorian fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charging for the battle they expected to win easily. Admiral Kriegstall stood proudly on his bridge, watching the blue world grow larger on his screens. In a few hours, Earth would be another conquest to add to his long list of victories. He had no idea that he was leading his fleet into the greatest military disaster in galactic history. The stars looked the same as they always had from Earth, but Jake Morrison knew better. He sat in his chair deep underground in Colorado, watching screens that showed alien ships moving between distant worlds. The beings on those ships had been trying to talk to Earth for 3 years now. They sent messages every day demanding answers that would never come. Jake wore the uniform of a commander, but his real job was much bigger than any rank could show. He was in charge of keeping Earth silent while they built the biggest secret in human history. The aliens thought humans were stupid and weak. Jake planned to keep it that way until the right moment came. Dr. Lisa Parker worked at the desk next to him, her fingers flying over keyboards as she studied every alien message that came through their hidden receivers. She had learned 17 different alien languages in the past 2 years. Each species that contacted Earth thought they were the first to find the small blue planet. None of them knew about the others. This gave Jake and his team a huge advantage. The Valorian Empire was the loudest of all the aliens. Their messages came 3 times a day, always demanding that Earth surrender and join their galactic government. They promised to be kind rulers if humans obeyed quickly. They also promised terrible punishment if humans continued to ignore them. Jake had heard these threats so many times he could repeat them from memory. Major Paul Carter stood near the back of the room, talking quietly into his radio. He was coordinating with observation posts hidden throughout the solar system. Humans had built these posts in secret, disguising them as asteroids or space junk. From these hidden spots, they watched every alien ship that came near Earth. The aliens never suspected they were being watched. Admiral Helen Rodriguez walked into the room carrying a thick folder of reports. She had spent the morning reviewing construction updates from the secret shipyards on the far side of the moon. The shipyards had been built using technology that the aliens would never expect humans to possess. Robot factories worked day and night, building ships that would soon change everything. The alien messages were always the same. They offered trade agreements that heavily favored the aliens. They promised protection from other hostile species. They demanded access to Earth's resources and people. Some aliens claimed they wanted to help humanity advance to higher technology. Others were more honest about their plans for conquest and slavery. Jake watched a new message arrive from the Keth Dominion, a spider-like species that controlled 12 star systems. Their translator made their clicking speech sound almost polite, as they explained how humans would benefit from becoming part of their empire. The benefits mostly involved humans working in their mines and factories, while the Keth took everything valuable from Earth. Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her analysis, screens, and shook her head. The Keth had no idea that humans had already developed technology far beyond what the spider aliens possessed. Human scientists had spent 3 years studying alien technology from intercepted communications and wreckage from alien accidents. They had improved on everything they found, creating weapons and defenses that no alien species had ever imagined. The secret that Jake and his team protected was enormous. Hidden throughout the solar system, human workers were building a fleet of warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships used new types of engines that could appear and disappear instantly. Their weapons could destroy planets or carefully remove a single target. Their defenses made them nearly impossible to damage. Major Paul Carter finished his radio conversation and approached Jake with a grim expression. Intelligence reports showed that several alien species were getting tired of waiting for Earth to respond. The Valorian Empire was building up military forces near human space. Other species were making similar preparations. War was coming whether humans wanted it or not. Admiral Helen Rodriguez opened her folder and spread photos across the table. The pictures showed massive construction projects on Mars, Europa, Titan, and dozens of asteroid bases. Human engineering. Teams had built these facilities in complete secrecy, using technology that made alien science look primitive. The construction was almost finished. Soon humanity would be ready to reveal the truth. Jake stood up and walked to the large display screen that showed a map of local space. Red dots marked the positions of alien fleets. Blue dots showed human colonies and bases that the aliens knew about. The aliens thought the blue dots represented all of human civilization. They had no idea about the green dots that Jake could see on his private display. The green dots marked secret human bases and shipyards that covered 3-star systems. The plan had been simple in concept but incredibly difficult to execute. Humanity would stay completely silent while building the most powerful fleet in galactic history. They would let the aliens think Earth was a primitive, defenseless world. When the aliens finally came to conquer Earth, they would find themselves facing 1,000 warships commanded by a species they had badly underestimated. Dr. Lisa Parker had calculated the odds of success many times. The alien species were individually powerful, but they were also arrogant and unprepared for serious resistance. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology. They had certainly never fought anyone who possessed better technology than their own. The shock of discovering advanced human capabilities would give Earth's forces a crucial advantage in any battle. Jake returned to his chair and watched another alien message arrive. This one came from the hegemony of suns, a militant species that controlled the local trade routes. They were offering humanity a chance to join their empire as a protected client state. The protection would cost Earth 90% of its resources and the relocation of most humans to labor camps on distant worlds. The irony was perfect. The aliens saw Earth as a prize to be claimed by whoever moved first. They were competing with each other for the right to conquer humanity. None of them suspected that humanity was already more powerful than all of them combined. The secret fleet was almost ready. Soon, the 3 years of silence would end with the loudest statement in galactic history.